That's some good Fiji. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 18th episode of the Potatocast, our third Halloween special. As per usual, we have our very special co-host, Jason.
Hello.
And our very special guest, who I only really get to talk to once a year during these Halloween brackets, Noah. How you doing, Noah?
Hello. I'm very good. I'm ready for this bracket.
Ready for this bracket?
This is a historic day. Today now officially marks Noah as the guest who's appeared on the podcast the most. Technically, he kind of already was because the first Halloween episode was split into two separate episodes. Mm-hmm. But in terms of actual recordings, I think now he holds the cake for that one with 3 appearances. Let's go. So, how's everybody doing this fall?
Doesn't feel like fall. I think I said that last year, but it really doesn't feel like fall.
You did say that last year, and I kind of agree with it. I wholeheartedly agree with it this year.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like the trees are turning color over here, but that's about it.
Yeah, like I started kind of decorating for fall and stuff, and watching movies like in like mid-September, and honestly, then it was like, oh, this is like the beginning of fall going on. Like I watched Over the Garden Wall for the first time, which I don't want to talk about too much, but I thought it was amazing. A lot of people, I understand why people rave about it, but like I watched that and that really put me in the fall mood. But then after that, it's sort of been like a decline, I guess. I don't know what it's been. I've just been in a funk or something.
Well,
maybe.
did the movies you watched, get you back into that mood a little bit, or
some of them? Definitely some of them.
Definitely some of them. Okay. Interesting. I mean, we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Of course, we have 8 movies again this year. We had 16 the first year. That just went on way too long.
That was way too long.
We did 8 last year. It seemed to work pretty well, so we're doing 8 again this year. We did change things up a little bit. Now, typically, I would choose the majority of the movies. Right. And each year we had Noah pick out one movie to watch and add to it. But I, for the most part, picked out all the movies. But we decided this year we wanted to kind of do an even split, or as even as we could, of what movies we picked to watch this year. I only picked 2 because I picked the majority of them before. But and then you and Noah picked 3 movies. So
I initially said to myself, for the movies I wanted to pick, kind of do stuff I've never seen. That did not work out.
It's funny you say that because in August I was in Massachusetts and I went out to go bowling with Joaquin.
It was fun.
And we brought up the idea of, you want to do it again this year? Because we hadn't done a podcast since last year's one. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? And Joaquin mentioned that where he's like, yeah, I think I want to pick movies that I haven't really seen for the most part. And then literally once I got Noah's confirmation that he wanted to do it, he'd said the exact same thing.
Yeah, so. I'd seen the ones that I picked, but they weren't ones I was emotionally attached to. I'd seen them like once, so I wanted to keep it a bit more fresh.
Again, though, for me at least, did not really work out that well. I ended up just picking movies that maybe I kind of wanted to watch,
Right, that's fair. Before we jump into the bracket, I did want to talk to you guys, and I haven't mentioned this to you guys before, so I didn't give you time to think about it. So it doesn't have to be like your definite favorites, but I kind of wanted to. What are some of your favorite TV specials, like Halloween TV specials? Ooh. These could be like actual like hour-long, like mini movie TV special things, or they could just be like episodes of like TV shows that are Halloween themed.
Right.
For me, I really have a lot. I watched it recently. It does not hold up to how I remembered it, but I remembered loving the Fairly Odd Parents episode with the pumpkin bots. Mm-hmm. The SpongeBob one's also a classic with the
that
shaves his head down.
SpongeBob one scared me as a kid. Like, I guess it did its job, but like, man, I'm assuming you're talking about the one where like he shaves his head.
Yeah, and it ends up just being a brain because he wants to look like a ghost.
Yeah, that one scared me.
Wait, which one is that? Is that the Halloween Flash?
No, that's not the.
I didn't even think about that being a Halloween episode.
I'm pretty sure that came out like Halloween time.
Oh, I mean, it probably did.
Oh, I just remember seeing it as a kid, and it was at least maybe it's just me misremembering, but I remember it being like maybe the week before Halloween first day or something.
Right.
I vividly remember watching that as a kid.
We've mentioned it. I think we mentioned it before on the podcast, but me and Joaquin, I think we both have like a fondness for the Scary Godmother movies.
Yeah, but those are movies. You know, those aren't.
Yeah, but they were like made for TV movies, which I guess some of the other ones that we've had on have been before. Like I think Halloween Town was made for TV.
Yeah,
that.
But Disney Channel originals and whatnot. The one that comes to mind. I don't know if you guys remember. There's an episode of Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, where they're kind of like just trapped in the house all night, and like it's like during like a giant rainstorm. I don't even really remember what happens in that episode. It's just coming to mind right now. Then you have other episodes you have other stuff like Billy and Mandy definitely had a couple Halloween specials. You know.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know what? What's that? What's the name of that Billy and Mandy special? Underfist? Yeah, there we go.
That's the one with there's like a pirate, right?
No. Underfist was the one that had like all the Billy and Mandy side characters as like the leads. It was supposed to be like a spin-off of Billy and Mandy, but it ended up just being like a one episode kind of deal.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Where the one where like Erwin is revealed to be like Dracula's son.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. That one I like a lot.
How about Treehouse of Horrors?
Oh, those are classics.
Yeah, they all kind of just jumble as one in my brain. I can't figure out one exactly, but I can remember from the little bits, like the Shining one, probably one of the best. And I guess it's the vibe of knowing it was coming every single year. Do they still make them? So
I'm sure they do. I mean, they're still making seasons, so.
Yeah. I don't know how what they're building it off now. It must have been new stuff.
Well, let's jump into the bracket then. Now, another thing with the bracket was, since they were all sort of picked by, like we all, put our fists in the hat. That wasn't a saying. Since we all suggested movies, I don't know. Typically, we would make the bracket based on like matchups that made sense theme-wise. This year, though, I decided let's just randomize it, and I did that last night, or technically this morning at 2 a.m. We're recording this at 10 a.m. also, by the way. So if it's a little sluggish, I've had 2 hours of sleep. But Noah and Joaquin do not know what the matchups are. I was telling Noah before we recorded that I think I have an idea of how the bracket's gonna go just from looking at it, but I also thought that every other year, and I did not have like a perfect score each year. So we will see. I've been surprised.
It's hard to predict, man. It's very hard to predict. We all have 3 very differing opinions when it comes to this kind of stuff. But that's what makes it interesting.
I agree. And so we will start off with round 1, match 1.
Oh boy.
And our first matchup is Invasion of the Body Snatchers versus Straight Outta Nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage of the Cowardly Dog.
Okay.
Oh man.
Very similar movies, yeah.
Right.
Very similar.
So Invasion of the Body Snatchers was Noah's pick. So Noah, if you want to tell us, give us a little refresher on the movie.
Yeah, sure. So the first time, and the only other time I saw this was in college, actually. It was a sci-fi course I was taking. This movie's about, it's kind of like a Red Scare motif, like that type of theme, where one person is like, my mom, as a little kid, mom, she's not the same. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then it turns out that there's like a big developing plot. There's some type of alien force invading all of the minds and impersonating people of the town, and it's spreading, and everybody is falling victim to it. There's one main character, Doctor, that you're following the entire time. He goes from like the level-headed one to somebody who is basically seen as crazy by the end of the film. And yeah, it plays on that Red Scare of the 50s when it was made.
Right. Yeah, we watched the 50s one, not the 70s one. I think it's in the 70s was the other one.
Yeah.
Black and white. I gotta say, I liked this movie. I will say, there's part of me that feels like it isn't super Halloweenish. I don't know. It's just...
It doesn't give off Halloween vibes for sure. Like,
right.
but it definitely like gives off like horror vibes. So I think I think it fits pretty well in terms of the context of like, this bracket. But if I'm to like go off immediately about this movie, I think it ends super strong, begins that is one of the worst ways to start your movie. It is so slow, and it doesn't really get suspenseful until like when you're halfway through. So
I will say I was very surprised. So a lot of my issues with older movies isn't the story, isn't really the acting, isn't like the visuals of it. A lot of the time it comes down to, well, I mean, if it's a bad story, then it's a bad story. But it typically comes down to a lot of times I can't fucking hear what people are saying.
I always thought it was me when I was watching these types of movies.
But I gotta say the audio is pretty clear in this one. I was very surprised. I noticed that was the noticeable thing to me when I was watching it. I was like, damn, they're not talking super fast and like mumbling. Like I can understand what they're saying.
It's a weird pro to get into a movie. I gotta admit.
I feel like that's like when we had like the old Universal monster movies in the previous brackets, and even like the Christopher Lee Dracula movie. I feel like those kind of suffered from that, where like it was just people standing in a room, talking really fast and sort of mumbling their words.
And so a lot of the times there's like wider shots where you can't exactly see like who's talking, or like they're from afar, so you can't really like decipher. For me at least, it helps to be able to see the people's lips so I can understand. So yeah, I agree with Jason. Some movies, especially back then, suffered from that. Did you guys feel like it was just confusing, the alien force? Like I feel like there was not a definite I know what's going on moment.
Right. It's not confusing. I think like maybe it could have been. Actually, no. I kind of like the way it was, where it was like it basically just seed pods from space showed up, started growing on Earth, and then taking over human minds. Like that's really all you need. Like I don't think the grand plan, other than just like take over the world, needs to be described here.
Yeah, I don't think that the plan has to be. It's just the details, because the pods, they made different bodies, right, for these people.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, I think it's like
I
think it's like the pods will like try to make like basically they'll try to make the body of whoever they're like around, and then when they fall asleep at night, that pod like opens up and takes the body, or takes the mind, or whatever.
Yeah, I was never sure if they were replacing the actual bodies, or like they somehow took the because during the climax of it, when they're like running away and they're hiding in like a train tunnel or wherever they were.
Right.
Like the lead actress in like the female role, I don't forget what the character's name is, but she fell asleep for like a few minutes or something, right? It wasn't very long, and then all of a sudden the body snatcher.
She like closed her eyes, and then she was instantly, just snatched up.
Yeah, so that's what confused me. Is she taken away or is she taken over? So those are two different things. But I guess it's kind of nitpicky, but it's when it's the crux in the movie, it's hard to overlook.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And
Makes sense.
But I think for the times it was pretty good. Like
yeah, definitely.
The action was kind of meh, but again, it was just it was the 50s. What are you gonna do? Yeah, all you can really do is just run around, pretty much.
Right. It's okay.
I know, Joaquin, you said you liked the ending. How do you like the ending, Jason? I feel like it would have been better ending kind of open, while they tried to wrap it up more.
Yeah, it did sort of almost feel like we watched like a prolonged version of like a first half of a movie, and then like we just don't see the other half of the movie. You kind of get what I'm saying? It ended open-ended, right? I'm not remembering this wrong.
It
was like,
they're yelling, "You're next on the bridge." I think it should have ended there. But
sorry to cut you off. Sorry to cut you off, but Emma has just alerted me. Like I knew this was like adapted from a book before, but Emma's alerted me that in the book, the body snatch people critique humans and how they're an invasive species. They're trying to just give humans a taste of their own medicine.
Right.
Which I don't think it comes off like that in the film.
Oh, definitely not.
Which I guess is just to show that maybe it's not that good of an adaptation. But for what it is, I still think it works. It's just you can cut off some bits and pieces there, here and there.
Now, the way that it ends, right, is that like they're in the hospital where we first see the guy in the beginning.
Right.
And then they learn that there's more pods, and then it pretty much ends after that, right?
Like they had like to call the CIA or the FBI. I think.
Yeah, right. And then it ends. Like it feels like there's a big action movie to come right after when it ends, and then it just ends.
Yeah, I
like the open end of this. You know,
would have been better if they didn't believe him, or if they ended before we get the like everybody believing him. I
see what you're saying.
I kind of like the idea. I mean, like, I understand that, but I kind of like the idea that maybe the cycle begins anew because the pods are already in that town, you know? So maybe it's just already, like, too late for that. Because we don't actually see them get connected to the FBI or, like, you know, the tanks coming in. And that's another thing. Like, hypothetically, let's say the FBI or, like, the CIA, the military gets involved, right?
Right.
Are they just going to start gunning down these people?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Right.
It's like, God damn, that would be very dark for a movie like this, you know?
Well, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is going up against an interesting opponent. We have who gets a consolation award for the longest movie title that we've had in the brackets. It's going up against Straight Outta Nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog, which was a Joaquin pick.
Of course.
So if you want to give us a little refresher on that one, Joaquin.
Oh, I would love to. I'd love to.
Fantastic.
During the unmasking of a bank-robbing clown, Scooby-Doo hears a strange noise and is driven to dance and then runs away. Meanwhile, Courage, the Cowardly Dog, appears to be having the same problem. Though Muriel and Eustace Bagg don't seem to notice, the gang rushes after Scooby, only to find that they have ended up in nowhere, where a group of hostile cicadas is surrounding Courage and Scooby. After killing the cicadas, they are called inside the Bagg household, where they properly meet Eustace and Muriel. Basically, it's a crossover between the two cartoon, I'd say mystery dogs, where they both kind of try to solve mysteries. And honestly, like, everybody says it, right? When this movie was first announced, like, of course it's a direct-to-DVD Scooby-Doo movie, but the idea for it just makes so much sense. It's crazy that they haven't tried to do this before, because like Scooby-Doo has only really crossovered with like Johnny Bravo as the Cartoon Network franchise. I'm just specifically talking in terms of like Cartoon Network. So like, I think the idea here is very ingenious, and I'm curious to see what you fellas have to say, because I kind of want to save my thoughts for like after what you guys think.
Okay, I do have thoughts on this movie, but Noah, do you have anything you want to say, or you want me to go with my thoughts?
Well, I think, what series were you guys more connected with as a kid? Scooby-Doo or Courage?
Oh, as a kid? Between the two?
Yeah.
Probably more Scooby-Doo, but I still liked Courage the Cowardly Dog, but it did creep me out a lot as a kid, so I didn't watch it as much.
It was definitely Courage the Cowardly Dog. I enjoyed, but I would never like actively seek it out. If it was on, I'd watch it. Then again, I can also kind of say the same for like Scooby-Doo, because I wasn't really going out of my way to watch stuff like a pup named Scooby-Doo whenever that was on in the morning, or
that was like the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was aired in the 90s, but it was made in the 90s, but like they would re-air it like on mornings at Cartoon Network, like next to Baby Looney Tunes and whatnot.
I'll say this, right? There are definitely movies in the tournament that I would watch. I would watch this movie before some other ones. Again, but it's mostly because of how short it is. Now
it is very short.
I know we're supposed to just judge it based on its own merit mixed with, comparing it to what it's up against in the bracket, but I'd be remiss not to compare it to just like other Scooby-Doo movies, and I just feel like there are so many other better like Scooby-Doo original movies, even like that are like seem more Halloween themed, I guess, but even not harping on the Halloween theme of it, it just felt like the movie, it felt kind of like a shell of Scooby-Doo.
Interesting.
And you know what? I think it feels like a shell of Courage the Cowardly Dog too.
I agree. I agree.
And to me, I don't know how much I like Scooby-Doo, like in retrospect. That's what I was thinking of when I was watching this movie, because I liked all the courage aspects of it, because he's a more like creative and expressive character to me. But in large part because he doesn't talk much. Like, he has to be expressive, which
Right.
I found just endearing. So it got me thinking, do I like Scooby-Doo that much? And I don't know if your movie's like good, if it's making me question how much.
If you like one of the main characters.
Yeah, not even the character, but like the whole series.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when Scooby-Doo is good, it's good. Like, again, like some examples of like I think other Scooby-Doo movies, which I think could make it pretty far. These are the ones that were suggested. Stuff like, you know, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, or even I have great like nostalgia for Shaggy and Scooby's Spook School.
I haven't heard that one. Haven't heard.
Yeah, I'm not
You ever
familiar.
seen Spook School? Oh, it's
Never
great.
seen Spook School.
It's great. They become teachers at a school for monsters. It's great.
Interesting.
But yeah, this suggests it. The story was like, It was like, what was the story? Bugs in a meteor.
Yeah.
is
So
pretty much
so basically, there's like this sound that's drawing people. Like it's basically just mind control, but it really does attract like Courage and Scooby because they're dogs and they have like a lower frequency of hearing or a higher frequency, so like they get affected by it first, and it draws them to the Nowhere household.
I know what the story is, but it just felt like it didn't feel very dynamic, and like it kind of made more sense towards the end when like the reveal of like who was behind it happened, when it was revealed to be cats and the duck. Because at first I was like, why do these bugs want money? Why do I care about this? But then it was revealed to them. But then when like they did the whole, you know, end of the episode explanation of why they did everything and you know, explaining the mystery, they really didn't explain a mystery. They just explained what we just saw. I don't know. It just felt very.
And it makes me like, why do they have to play the nostalgia card? Is what I feel. They bring back all the old characters from the Courage universe, and they really try to explain away like why this is all happening to Courage.
No, but see, I actually kind of like that. Like, it's revealed in this movie that basically the meteor that hit the Earth that caused like the death of the dinosaurs had dark matter in it, and the house that the Courage household was built basically right on top of where the meteor landed. So it explains why all that like weird stuff happens to, you know, like Courage and Nowhere. Like I honestly kind of really jive with that.
I feel like Courage, you don't need an explanation.
You don't need it, but it doesn't hurt. I don't think
it doesn't hurt, and
it's not actively. I don't think like this movie actively takes away from like if you're gonna go back and watch Courage the Cowardly Dog, now you're gonna go, oh well, the dark matter meteor under the house is just causing all this,
you
so
can
it's
always
not
just,
interesting.
You know, it's everybody can have their own headcanon,
No,
whatever. But I will say that if I feel like if I was like a big Courage fan though, I could see myself having an issue with it. Sort of similar to like with the like Star Wars, when like in episode 9 they did a couple things. I don't really want to get into it, but like where they sort of retcon certain things with the Force and like added things that sort of didn't make sense with the older movies, and so that kind of made me a little upset. But I feel like if I was a big Courage the Cowardly Dog fan, them explaining why all this stuff's happening, I feel like I'd be a little upset with it. I don't know why.
It makes me wonder the opposite too. If I was completely unaware who Courage was, like, it's fair to assume somebody would watch this for Scooby-Doo. But does it just seem out of place to have this random cat and random duck go out of nowhere? Like, oh, these are.
I mean that's definitely a fair criticism. Courage the Cowardly Dog there hasn't been a new episode in the past 20 years, so like that definitely makes sense.
Oh my god.
I mean,
so
think
old.
about it. I mean, that show stopped airing as soon as like we were like, I don't know, gaining sentience.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Another criticism I have of the movie, which I understand it's sort of a trope with Scooby-Doo movies, but I feel like it's much worse than this, is the song numbers in it.
Oh my god, I was just gonna bring that up. The rap.
I actually this might sound crazy, but I thought that was kind of hilarious just to see Eustace start fucking bringing it down, you know? It wasn't good. Like let me be perfectly clear. Eustace rapping, not good. But it is very funny that they went through with it.
See, I feel like it would make more sense if they had like a character that did music and then the music numbers came from that character. Like kind of like, you know, the Hex Girls are in, you know, the movie and they do a song number. And it makes sense because they do. But just having random characters break out into song, it just felt very out of place. I'd be like, oh, let me go on my phone during this, you know?
No, I was, my eyes were glued. In fact, one thing I do want to say is this movie, out of all the other movies on this list, I did not want to end. As weird as that sounds, I couldn't wait. I was like, because the way I was thinking about it, right, is like, unfortunately, Muriel's voice actress died shortly before this movie came out, so like this was released posthumously. Like it was so nice just to like see Courage and Muriel Eustace like on screen again in any new material, because like it's not a franchise I think Cartoon Network truly cares that much about, and the only reason why this happened is because it like actually just blends so well, I feel. I think it's very cute, this movie. I think it's very charming. There's a lot of like past references to Scooby-Doo and Courage Media that I picked up on, and references can't carry a movie, but I think it shows that they were like aware of the Courage source material, and they really wanted to pay it like respect, even if like the creator of Courage was not involved in this. But I still think they did a good job capturing the vibes of, you know, Courage. So I don't know. I really do jive with this movie.
I have the Rotten Tomato scores for both movies. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. It has a critic score of 98 and an audience score of 85. Scooby-Doo and Courage, it doesn't have a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has a 67 audience score. So honestly, more. I was gonna say more people liked it than I was expecting. But at the same time, I feel like I'm just not the demographic for this movie. I mean, I feel like I should be, right? I feel like it should play to like an older-ish audience that kind of grew up with Courage and stuff like that. But I felt like the actual material felt very like, oh, this is very much for like little kids and not a whole lot for like, besides just like the references in terms of like the story or like any like higher brow jokes or something. There wasn't really a whole lot for it felt very kiddie, this movie, to me. I also wasn't a fan of the animation, really. The Courage stuff was fine because that looked like the original Courage show, but for the Scooby-Doo characters in this style of animation, it looked too pristine for me.
You think too pristine?
I wasn't a huge fan of it, personally.
I think it looked pretty good. There were also some like sequences I think were animated pretty well, like when Courage and Scooby were digging like the hole in the tunnel, or like when they kept changing how the characters looked every time they got hit by the meteor.
I will say I did really like the dynamic between Scooby and Courage. I think that was a pro.
Absolutely.
I think that they really played off each other well.
Oh, absolutely.
Also, I did not like Velma in this movie at all. I thought she was so annoying. And I like Kate Micucci. Did not like her as Velma, like the voice.
I'm not too big of a fan of her, take on Velma. I think it's fine in this movie, and I really do like Muriel trying to stump Velma with riddles. I do think that's really cute. It does seem like something Muriel would do because she's just kind of oblivious to everything else around her. So she's just like trying to give riddles out. Like, I don't know. This movie is just very cute.
I also want to mention that it was really just, I know that he does like the other movies too, but I don't really watch any of the new Scooby-Doo like movies, so it's not something that I experience a lot. But hearing Matthew Lillard again as Shaggy was great.
Oh yeah, he's always great in the role.
And that's kind of all my thoughts on it for the most part.
Yeah, should we take a vote?
I think it's time for the vote, and I'm not gonna lie, fellas, I'm kind of scared.
You go first, Joaquin.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious, by the way I've been talking, that I think the crossover movie kind of has to take the vote here, you know?
Okay. Noah?
For me, I'm gonna go with Body Snatchers.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing. Again, like, Joaquin, I know you said that your eyes were like glued to the screen during this one, but I was struggling not to avert my eyes to my phone during it because of how just like
It's funny
engaged I was with it.
The first half of Body Snatchers was definitely
same thing for you.
Definitely the same kind of thing for me.
We're going on to match 2 now of round 1. Ghostbusters versus Transylvania 65000. And Joaquin, you picked Ghostbusters.
I did.
You want to give us that little synopsis?
Yeah, sure. After the members of a team of scientists lose their cushy positions at a university in New York City, they decide to become Ghostbusters to wage a high-tech battle with the supernatural for money. They stumble upon a gateway to another dimension, a doorway that will release evil upon the city. The Ghostbusters must now save New York from complete destruction. I feel like I don't have to give like a very long plot synopsis for Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
everybody here's seen Ghostbusters before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the kind of movie that like it's shocking. I was thinking about like just movies that we haven't seen, like big Halloween movies we haven't really seen, and I was like, we didn't watch Ghostbusters. That's crazy.
Right.
So it's like I might as well just throw it up on there, you know, just in case like no one else picks it. And I was right, no one else did.
Yeah. I have an explanation as to why it's never been on the bracket before. I just never considered Ghostbusters that much of a Halloween movie.
Really?
In general, whenever I would go on like Spotify and try to find like a Halloween music playlist to like put on when I'm decorating, the Ghostbusters theme would always be on there, and I'd skip it immediately. It doesn't feel
That's
very
crazy.
Halloween.
That is crazy.
I think the song might be the worst part of the movie to me.
To that note, though,
that's crazy.
to that note, though, I thought that like the score of the movie, not just like the title like song and everything, but the score of the movie, I thought was fantastic. I noticed that, and I thought it was great.
I do want to say, you know, I mean, I guess I'll just go right into this.
Yeah.
The comedy for Ghostbusters, not as strong as I remember. Like
I'm the opposite. I thought it was much stronger than I remembered.
It's not as strong as I remember. Like, yeah, obviously with a cast like this stacked, you know, there are obviously some really funny moments, but you know, a lot of it's just like dry and going along on the way. It
does feel very improv.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's definitely, you know, it's fine. I just don't I'll be honest, I don't really know how this turned into a big franchise. This doesn't seem like the marks of a franchise film, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
I think it must have been, since it was the 80s, like, it had the capability to take off like that. If it came out now, I don't think it would.
Probably not. I've never seen Ghostbusters 2. I have not seen Afterlife. I've only seen bits and pieces of 2016. So I mean, I can't really say I'm like a big Ghostbusters fan. Like the first movie's good,
Right.
You know, that's all I can say. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not really a huge Ghostbusters fan either. I haven't seen Afterlife or the 2016 one or 2 either. I kind of agree with you. I had a similar thought, especially towards the end, where I was watching it, and especially when they were on top of the roof, because once I noticed that it was a matte painting of New York behind them, it was extremely obvious that they were on a set, and I was watching it, and I was like, this could have easily just gone in like, you know, the ether of just random 80s movies that like people just forget about, and a couple people like the likes of, I mean, I know these weren't the 80s, but stuff like, I don't know, Reanimator, and where it has like a kind of a cult following, but not like a huge, you know, mega, you know, franchise.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't really like what's the big draw here to make more Ghostbusters content, especially when the people that made Ghostbusters, like Bill Murray, not a big fan of Ghostbusters. He actively like hates it. He does not like to do any of it. So like, what's the big draw here?
Who is your favorite Buster? Let me ask you right now.
My favorite what? Buster?
Favorite Buster?
I think Egon.
Yeah,
Egon's pretty strong. Man, Egon is pretty fucking strong. It's I'd say either Egon or Winston. Even though Winston comes in like at the like beyond the halfway point, Winston comes in. It's
Yeah, but I think they brought him. I think because I was sort of thinking, I was like, it's sort of weird that they brought this character in like halfway through.
Right.
He's like a main Ghostbuster, but like I do feel like Winston was there to sort of connect the audience more to them. I feel like to be like the anchor, like he's one of us that's joined the Ghostbusters.
Sure, because like you have the two obsessed scientists, the fucking playboy, and then just like your everyman.
But yeah, I think Egon, just like his like complete dry humor was so good, like the literal likeness of him. I thought it was the funniest part of the movie.
Yeah.
And like I work with like these types of scientists, so like I've seen some parallels of people like that in real life. So I just think how Ramis played it and wrote it too.
Mm-hmm.
Really top notch. Obviously, it's a bit of a caricature, but still, it's fun.
I will say, that Gozer is probably one of the worst like final like movie villains I think I've ever seen. Because
Like
no, I mean just like in general. Because he shows up, right? He pushes them a little bit with some lightning, and then turns into the Steam Puft Marshmallow Man.
Right.
And they instantly, I swear to God, they knock his ass down like within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
I hadn't watched the movie in a while, and I thought I remembered like more havoc being caused by the Marshmallow Man, but I watched it this time. I was like, damn, he really just walked down the street and exploded.
Exactly. Like Gozer did nothing.
I agree. Even as a kid, I feel like I always thought the ending was a bit, but I think it's a bit of like a cross section of what this movie is trying to be, whether it be the sci-fi action or the comedy. Because obviously, like for the comedy purposes, having a stupid Marshmallow Man as a villain is hilarious.
Sure.
But it's I can agree with you, Joaquin. It's like, which way do you want to play? And if it's not going to work for you as a watcher, it's understandable.
Yeah, it didn't really work for me because like I don't even think the comedy aspect of like it's funny for like the first 5 seconds, but then you realize like, oh well, the movie still has to like end. Like there still needs to be like stakes here and making your main villain of the movie a Marshmallow Man that, like Jason said, walks down the street a little bit, maybe stomps on 1 or 2 cars. Like, what is the danger here?
Right.
I don't know. Like I mean I say all this, but I still thoroughly enjoy this movie. Don't get me wrong. The first Ghostbusters is a classic for a reason. I just like I maybe it's just not as good as like everybody says it is.
Yeah, I think it's worth bringing this stuff up because anytime anybody really talks about it, I feel like it's just heaps of praise, so it doesn't hurt to bring up the other side.
Exactly.
Right. Another standout, I think, of the movie, Rick Moranis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think honestly, like, it's a toss-up between him and Egon, but I thought that he was so good in the movie. I thought he was so funny.
With him trying to get with who is it? Sharon Stone's character, constantly trying to get with her.
Or Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, Sigourney Weaver. Sorry. Yeah, trying to get with her. But speaking about Sigourney Weaver, I think we had to bring up the kind of uncomfortable implications of the rape scene.
Bill Murray.
It's not even the Bill Murray. I'm talking about the one where she's getting possessed by Zool. The one where like the demon dogs are like in the chair dragging her.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. I don't know. That was all just sorts of uncomfortable. I feel like 80s movies written by like people like this always sort of had like an uncomfortable scene like that.
Yeah, another one of our movies has that for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I swear to God, like these nerds be fucking horny, okay? And they're projecting. They are projecting.
Should we move on to our next movie?
I think it's time. Unless
Sure.
Jason, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think we can move on.
All right.
So Ghostbusters is going up against Transylvania 65000, which is a movie that I picked. It's been on my Amazon watch list for like years for around Halloween time, and I just never got around to it. And I was like, you know what? It supposedly has like kind of Halloween movie monsters in it, I feel like it's a good fit. It's got Jeff Goldblum. It's probably going to be pretty good, right? Anyways, I have this really extensive synopsis for it, so bear with me. 2 tabloid reporters are assigned to get a scoop on the Frankenstein monster, who is reputedly living in Transylvania. And that's about it.
I need to know, really.
Yeah. Jason, man,
Yep.
I gotta say, this is the first movie I watched, right? Because I was over at Jake's house, and we needed something to just like put on while we were waiting for other people to show up.
Right.
And we put it on for sure.
Yep.
This movie is awful.
This might be the worst one we've seen in any of these.
This is terrible. Like, I don't know where to begin. Like, there are maybe I'll start off with like the good things, right? The quote unquote
Sure.
Jeff Goldblum, he's doing a perfectly fine job in this, right?
Right. Not my favorite brand of Jeff Goldblum, but still,
Sure.
Jeff Goldblum's still great though.
It's Jeff Goldblum. He usually
Right.
does a good job in whatever he's in, even in the worst part of even if it's like a terrible movie. It's Jeff Goldblum. You're gonna watch it.
Yeah.
His side character, I thought he also was doing a pretty fine job. Nothing really bad there.
Right. Ed Harney?
I can't remember his name for the life of me.
I'll look it up while you talk.
Yeah, but and the costume designs for the monsters, they're okay for the quote unquote monsters. That is,
Right.
they're
Ed
okay.
Begley Jr.
Right.
is the guy's name.
Yeah, they're okay. Very interesting to see. Do you think? I want to go off topic here because Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum were married,
Yes.
like a couple of years after this movie. Do
This
you think
is where they met. This is where they met. Yeah, I
it
looked
is.
up.
That's really funny.
Yep. I had to look it up because, of course, Gina Davis is the crown jewel of Wareham.
Oh yeah, Wareham
Massachusetts,
represents.
and so, yeah, represent. But yes, this was in fact where Gina Davis met Jeff Goldblum.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, all the other acting is horrible. Like all the people that are from Transylvania, they're just god awful.
Yeah,
the
my
script-
first note was insufferable characters. Was my first
absolutely.
note.
Yeah, the script fucking atrocious, mind you. And a lot of shit just did not age well with time. I want to bring up the final scene where like all the quote unquote monsters are revealing themselves to be just like regular humans that had like tragedy or whatever, like they wanted to improve themselves. Transylvestite? Are you?
I was
kidding
waiting
me?
I was waiting for one of those jokes when I was watching it. I
Are
was like,
you
when's one of those
kidding
jokes
me?
gonna come?
Holy shit! That was just like, that's bottom of the grade, like bottom of the barrel. And I'm sure at the time that might have gotten like 3 laughs in the theater, but just stuff ages with time, and this certainly did.
A lot of the jokes were like, maybe it's just unfunny now, but some of them went on for so long.
Oh,
that was another thing in my note. The scenes were so drawn out that it ruined the comedy. There were jokes that were fine, but it just kept going.
Michael Richards,
Agreed.
right? Like his character is like probably one. Michael Richards and the scientist character, like the two that are probably the most guilty of this, because Michael Richards will do like some physical comedy, but then he'll just keep dragging it on, and the joke is just completely ruined at that point. You beat it into the ground, like when he's pretending that his leg was caught in the door or his arm was caught in the door and it ripped off, but he does it like 8 more times. It's like, what are you doing?
And there was like the dinner scene where I think he was yelling just continuously over and over. Like, oh my goodness.
Or the shtick where the mad scientist, every time he walks into the lab, he snaps. Like, it's funny the first time. Like
It is.
But then you do it like 8 more times, and it's like, what's the point? What is the point here?
One time, I guess. I don't know.
The movie's too long for what it's worth, so they
Yeah.
could have definitely cut down some of that runtime.
Yeah, I thought the maid/butler relationship was pretty annoying and unfunny. I did sort of, the only part of the movie with them that made me laugh though was at the end when like their kid came out with the hunchback. But yeah, they were pretty annoying too. And also I thought the ending was extremely rushed as well, like where Jeff Goldblum goes down the line revealing like what each person is. It just felt like they just shoehorned it in. Like there wasn't like where he discovered these people's like what was wrong with these people. Like he just knew it at the end. Yeah, I was watching. I was like, dang, this was really this was my bad, guys. My bad.
Hey, it's good to have bad movies sometimes. You get everything put in this perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to think that like Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis will go on a few years later to make one of the best horror movies of the '80s, in The Fly.
Right, with The Fly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who else worked on that, director or writer-wise, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't any of the guys on it.
And that's sort of all my notes on Transylvania 65000. It was just like such a slog to get through this one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we really need to vote.
Yeah, I think
we
it's
gotta
gonna
do
be
it. We gotta do it
unanimous.
anyways. But
Okay.
there's not much of a point. I will admit.
And no, don't even give this like a pity vote or anything too, like you've done a couple of the other times. It doesn't deserve it.
It really doesn't.
Don't worry.
You know what? I'll. You know what? Obviously, the answer here is Ghostbusters, right? But can we do another vote? Is this the worst movie we've seen in this whole Halloween? Like throughout the years we've been doing this.
In all the years, the thing is, there's a movie on this bracket that I enjoyed watching far less.
Okay.
Huh?
Interesting.
I think I might know what it is, but
I think I might know what it is too.
This one is pretty bad though. I'm trying to think of other bad movies that we came across in the years. Like another one that pops in my head, but it's by no means this bad. Was like Haunted Mansion was a dud.
True.
yeah, okay.
You know, like the old like Dracula movie, like the first one was like the Bela Lugosi one. Like it's iconic, but was it really that good? This is definitely up there with the worst. This is definitely
okay, definitely up there. But yeah, I think.
Is this for you guys the worst one?
This has definitely got to be one of the worst. I'd say maybe like top 3 worst.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I can't think of everything we watched, but yeah, it's definitely up there.
I don't think there's anything worse last year. Maybe Horror of Dracula. No, I don't think Horror of Dracula is worse either. Horror of Dracula was kind of a dud, but it wasn't like.
No,
bad,
that like doesn't really have many redeeming qualities other than a couple of good jokes.
Right.
Even if you don't like the first Dracula movie, there's still iconic moments that are kind of scary too. Like, I don't know. I guess how much a joke is worth is subjective, but to me, not that much.
Then with that, we will move on to round 3, or match 3 of round 1. And this round we have Malignant versus Reanimator. Both movies belong to Noah. Both the movies that Noah picked.
So Malignant came out in 2021, and it's about this lady who was in an abusive relationship, gets a hit to the head, and she starts having these weird visions. She sees these murders happening in front of her while she's like asleep. And we learn throughout the movie that there's this evil, malignant force working inside of her. It was basically a twin that was a tumor, a teratoma, is still inside of her that was reawakened when she hit her head. So she ends up partially being responsible for the murder, not in her conscious, but like in her physical form. So she's kind of battling this monster inside of her head, literally inside of her head, by the end of the movie. Then Reanimator is about this medical student named Herbert West who rooms in with this other medical student, and they get into this kind of like I'll help you, you help me kind of relationship, I guess, where Herbert West ends up finding this formulation that brings things back from the dead, and they go on this little wacky adventure, killing their school director or something. So that movie came out in 1985, and it's based off of an old story from H.P. Lovecraft.
Now, I'll say this. The movie that I was just talking about before, where I enjoyed it less than Transylvania 65000, is in this matchup. Do you guys want to guess which one it is?
I'm gonna guess Reanimator.
Okay.
I would have Malignant.
It is Malignant.
Ah, I see.
It is. I just feel like this movie has an identity crisis. It doesn't know what it wants to be.
But isn't that the point?
But it's not enjoyable. Like, it started off, and I was like, oh, it's just gonna be kind of like a throwback to like campy, horror movies, and then it sort of becomes like a super dark, like serious modern horror movie, and then it becomes like an action mystery movie.
Yeah.
If it leaned into the campiness and like it felt like the camp, like the sort of campy aspects of it weren't on purpose. And
you
so
don't think so? I feel like it is on purpose.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they leaned into it enough. At least, at the very least, they didn't lean into it enough. I think if they leaned into it, it could have been really cool. But it just they like they only dipped their toe in. I feel like I thought that it had a depressing first act. The first act, I was like, I don't want to watch this movie anymore. I was like, I'll get through it. But I had very similar feelings to like when I first watched. Why am I blanking on the title of the movie? The one last year, the
Hereditary?
Yeah, Hereditary. But I think this was even more depressing than Hereditary. This first act of this movie.
Nah, child murder.
Just so drab and
child death is always
okay. Yeah, maybe.
Worse.
But at least that was like there was something dynamic with that.
Sure,
I don't know. There's just a drab house that you're watching an abusive relationship go on.
Mm-hmm.
The acting was questionable in it. Some like the leads were okay, right, for the most part, but some of the acting was questionable. I don't know. I just wasn't wasn't a huge fan.
Let me give you guys a little fun fact here. Out of every movie on this list, it's the only one I've seen in theaters. So I've seen this movie before, and from then and to now, this movie is so hilarious in how horrible it is. Like I'll flat out say it. Jason, you're absolutely right. It does have an identity crisis, and the plot of it makes no sense. Like, keep in mind, our main character is literally a nurse, and instead of like going to the hospital immediately after getting like her head cracked when she like it was bleeding, like she's like, nah, I'll just wait it out, and then her husband fucking dies in the middle of the night. And then later on, after another one of the murders, she wakes up to like blood all over her pillow because the back of her head was bleeding again. And she still doesn't go to the fucking hospital. You're a nurse. What are you doing?
I understand the first one, where it's like, because she's in like an abusive relationship. I don't think she'd want to. I guess she could make up a lie and be like, oh, I hit my head on this thing by accident or whatever. But I feel like someone in an abusive relationship, they probably be scared to go. Sure.
I'll be willing to let the first one slide, but the second one?
Yeah, once the husband's already dead.
No. And why doesn't she remember any of when Gabriel was there? Why does it take her until like she was on the phone with him in the bathroom? Like why does it take that long for her to remember? It's not explained well or even at all in the movie from what I remember.
Mm-hmm. No, it isn't explained. But I feel like, again, similar with some of the other movies on here that we already kind of talked about, I don't think everything necessarily needs to be explained with it.
I think something like that
like people sort of, suppress their trauma and stuff like that. I feel like that's
sure
not completely out of the ordinary.
Sure. The acting, the who I don't know who the main is, the lead, but
yeah,
she is atrociously bad. She's very, very awful.
I thought the sister was the worst. I think.
No, the sister was doing a bad to okay job, but she was just terrible. I'm thinking back to like the ending scene where she finally like confronts Gabriel head to head in her head, in her head, mind you.
Right. Right.
She's like, "No, Gabriel, you don't control me anymore." Like the most monotone, terrible acting I think I've heard in a while, a hot minute.
You see, I think all of this, I don't know how much of that was done on purpose by the actress, but all of this at least was culminated in something that was like camp on purpose. You had so many like bright 80s lights at the beginning in that first scene, and then a lot of the music was really over the top for the scenes that they were setting, especially if it was like trying to be a more reserved horror movie. And then by the third act, you have that. It becomes a Matrix basically, with your main character jumping around with your head backwards and slashing all these cops and stuff and breaking all their bones. I think it culminates into like the perfect camp movie. I really liked how it progressed from that like kind of more serious it felt like Hereditary 2. I felt like on my watching in that first act, and then leads into more horror mystery, and then goes into that like completely out of the freaking park, balls to the wall action stuff. I thought it made it really enjoyable for me. I can see why you would feel that way though, because it definitely does not have a single identity.
Yeah, and again, if maybe they lean into it, it'd be fine. And one of my notes here that I have written down is I have in all capital letters "dumb," and then I put it took itself too seriously. It was way too dramatic. Then I have for examples of when it was way too dramatic was first when like the lady dropped from the ceiling and the main character screamed like just like a blood. I was like, oh my! And then in the final confrontation, I wasn't sure if this was what Joaquin was going to bring up when he first mentioned the final confrontation, but when he's like, you can't keep me in here forever, I'll be back or whatever, and she says, and I'll be ready.
Oh.
I was like, oh my god.
Doesn't that feel like a Michael Myers movie? Or
No, because it doesn't.
It's great.
You can.
But how is she? It doesn't make sense though. How's she going to be ready?
It doesn't make sense.
Listen.
That's why it's great.
Listen. You can, Noah. You can totally have like campy bad acting in your film, but that doesn't excuse it from being bad acting. Like if it's bad on purpose, more power to you. But it's still bad, you know? Like it's not good. Like I don't know what to say.
And again, I'm one for like kind of viewing a movie in a certain like for a couple episodes ago we talked about One Room in 84, 82, I forget the name of it.
84.
One Room 84, and I actually kind of enjoyed it because it felt like it was sort of trying to make itself feel like an 80s movie, like the sort of campiness of it. I had like
that does a better job.
That's what I thought this was gonna be at first. But again, I just think it didn't lean into it hard enough.
No, but see, that does a better job at like defying it. Like it shows that it's trying to be campy throughout the entire thing, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas this, like you said, it's not trying to be campy throughout the entire thing. It has those serious moments, those serious down-to-earth moments. And then it goes back to fucking, ooh-wee, we're gonna go fucking, I don't know, solve this mystery of the killer baby, basically. It's like, no. Man.
Well, that's sort of my thoughts on Malignant. That's all the notes I had written down.
One more thing I do want to say. The CG action scene, the one in the police station where Gabriel's just like slashing throats here willy-nilly, was so fucking. It looked awful. It was like one of the most. It was super like rubbery. It just did not work that well, especially considering like she's supposed to be like super stiff. Her fucking bones are in reverse, basically.
Yeah.
When she finally does get control back of her body, and you hear like the cracks of her spine like forming back into the correct place. Like this is the same person that was then just doing like fucking wall jumps and slashing throats. Like
even though I think as a whole it did not fit the movie, I thought that was a fun scene. I thought like again, I think tonally with the rest of the movie it feels kind of weird and out of place. Like again, the whole identity crisis thing, but. Just on its own, though, I thought it was a fun like action scene. Like it was weird that it turned from a horror movie to an action movie for me.
Yeah, it
was just strange.
Yeah.
Anyways, should we move on to Reanimator, or do you have any last defenses, Noah, or Joaquin?
One last thing. Mm-hmm. There was one thing I actually really did enjoy, was even though it doesn't really make sense, because they say at the beginning of the movie that like he could control electricity for some reason.
Oh, that phone thing. How he's talking on the phone.
It's the phone thing. It's also the like I liked how like the lights would flicker, or like it showed that he was like absorbing power whenever he was like about to like strike. He was gonna absorb power. Like that was interesting. I liked that.
Oh, that was a positive. I thought the phone thing was stupid.
I thought it was
like,
okay.
How is this man talking to the police chief on the phone?
Because he can control like electricity. It makes sense.
Right.
Anyways.
Yeah, it makes about as much sense as anything else, though.
I will say though, I actually did not catch the twist of it until very late in the movie. I don't know how obvious it was for you guys. The twist of like Gabriel actually being, like, controlling the girl's body.
I knew, but the thing was, like, I didn't expect it to be like that. I thought it was gonna be like just complete, like, mind control, but not like Gabriel's in the back of her head, you know.
It did, because I remember when he killed the guy in his like apartment with like the red neon sign outside his house. When he killed that guy in like his bed, I remember being like, why do his limbs look like they're on backwards? I was confused at first, and then yeah, later on it was revealed that he just is the back of her head.
Yeah.
But no, do you have any last things to say?
Not really. I can understand why you guys wouldn't like this movie, but I feel like I ate into the camping aspects more.
That's fair. Well, that's fair. You know, I'm glad you were able to enjoy it. I wish I was, but
You can't say it's worse than Transylvania though.
I think as a movie, no, but I still think I don't think it's a good movie though. I still think it's a bad movie, but I do think Transylvania is probably worse. But if I had to choose one to watch again, I'd probably watch Transylvania again.
That's insane. All right, so Reanimator.
Right.
Feel about
I want to say if anybody's watching this episode, right, and they're hearing about some of these movies and they've never seen them before, and they're like, "Oh, Reanimator, let me check that out." My tip to you is to not eat during it. Eat before or after. It wasn't even like something weird. I was having mozzarella sticks while watching this movie.
Oh,
like
boy.
the most like plain food you can get, and I got halfway through. I'm like, I don't know if I can finish these. Oh, it was
I forgot how gory this movie was. I'd seen it
Very gory.
quite a few years ago.
I really don't have a whole lot of notes for it. Most of my notes are like weird, are weird little things. Like I had subtitles on while watching it, and I found out that the phrase is not gangway, it's gangway.
Okay.
Like when someone says gangway.
Every day.
Also, I'm curious if maybe like the guy that made Die Hard took inspiration from like Hans Gruber from this, or from was this based on a book, right?
Yeah, from H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, so I don't. Oh yeah. So I don't know if maybe he took it from the book, but I was like, oh, Hans Gruber, that's the villain in Die Hard.
Oh, I forgot about that. I can't remember. I read the book a long time ago, but obviously it was set in like early 1900s, so to make this is set in the 80s, so it's obviously very different in terms of the science. It just kind of loosely follows the plot.
Right. Yeah, we kind of mentioned it when we were talking about the uncomfortable Ghostbusters scene, but there's just a horny ass doctor in this movie.
Yeah, and man, how do I say this? The doctor you're talking about is revealed to basically have like mind control powers somehow. Was that explained? Like
Over the other dead bodies, you mean?
No, he has it throughout the movie.
But when does he have it throughout the movie?
He mind controls the dean to try to get the kid expelled.
Did he mind? I thought the dean just got the kid expelled.
No. When they were having the dinner scene, right? The dean and the doctor were having the dinner scene, right?
Right.
And he's like, "That boy is with your daughter," and like,
yeah, because he likes the daughter.
I think it was just like a power play more than.
Yeah, maybe he persuaded him. I don't think he was. I don't think there was any implication of mind control at all.
No, there was absolute implication of mind control there. There was absolutely, because
I think you're reading a little into it.
I'm not. I can't. I literally can't be, because the guy fucking. God, how do I say this? Hey, sorry about that, everybody. Turns out that I watched a cut of the film, an extended cut of the film that shows Dr. Hill with mind control powers. I think we can all definitively say that, right?
Yeah, that like if explicitly.
So that's why that little argument spewed there.
In the cut that we saw, it was just that was all cut out, and it was just implied that he had like blackmail or like natural power, not these supernatural powers that he apparently has in these scenes.
Yeah.
So that definitely changes it.
It definitely changes a lot of the context, I feel. So, you know what? I got more Reanimator than you guys, so who's the real winner here?
Yeah, true. One thing I did want to mention that I think this movie maybe it was ahead of its time on this, and it's still ahead of its time. You don't often see dicks in media.
No, you don't.
True.
We saw full frontal dick in this. It was just there. Rotting dick.
Yeah.
That
We certainly did.
I watched this with my sister Eliza, and like I said to her, "Is this the actress with like the most on-screen time with no shirt in any movie? Because she's like no shirt for more than time than she has a shirt, I think."
You're talking
And
about Meg?
you wanna think that like it was a completely consensual thing.
Yeah,
'Cause
unfortunately.
But it's this 80s.
There were some
Who
weird
knows?
vibes to it, but I feel like maybe she definitely knew because there was multiple.
She knew, but how?
There was
how
multiple
did you really
scenes.
want
I don't know if
it?
she was
We're
that
reading
comfortable
into
with it.
but-
Because there is one scene where Dr. Hill's disembodied head starts like licking on her chest and on her nipple, and it's like,
Yeah.
did she really? That's a little strange.
My last note is that it had a shit ending. With that being said, though, I literally could not tell you how this thing ends. So that's how shit it is, I guess. Like, I don't remember how the hell this thing ends.
I mean, I don't know if my cut is any different, but the way it ends for me is like they get out of like the morgue, they go up the elevator, but Meg's dead because someone like choked her out. One of the reanimated corpses choked her.
yeah.
Oh, right. Here you go. What I thought was gonna happen at the end when Meg was like on like the gurney in the hospital or whatever, and they were trying to bring her back and they couldn't. I thought that what they were gonna do, because it starts off at the beginning of the movie, right? It's got the lead actor and he's trying to save a person, like with like chest compressions, right?
Right.
And they're like, no, you can't. They're gone. You can't save them, right?
Yep.
And so I thought how it was gonna end was, oh, we just saw like the unnatural sort of science of the other character. Now we're gonna end the movie with him bringing her back to life, but like in a natural way.
Yeah.
But then he just doesn't. He
No.
just dies.
That would have been a nice little.
Wait,
bookend to the movie.
Did he not inject her with the serum in your cut?
Oh right, that is the end too. He does
Okay.
inject her.
I was about
Yeah.
to say, like, damn, these movies are different.
No, you're right. I forgot about that part.
But it just ends, right? It freeze
Yeah.
frames or something with him.
Yeah,
injecting her?
it freeze frames on him injecting her, and then you hear like her screaming as she comes back to life.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was like, "Fucker, do it earlier. She's dead in the elevator, and you have this serum, and you know it doesn't work that well unless you like instantly do it.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Why are you waiting? She's gonna be brain dead." Fucking Dr.
Yeah.
Hill, as insane as Dr. Hill was, he was basically right. The brain can only really survive 6 to 12 seconds. Otherwise, it's just like a lump of dead tissue and only a bunch of scattered memories. So, like, man.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be an interesting round. This might be one that I don't know which way it goes.
How do you guys feel about, I guess, the movie overall? Because we've been talking about kind of.
I thought that it was fine.
It's
I thought
yeah.
in terms of like horror movies, this one out of most of the horror movies that were on the list this year felt the most Halloweenish out of them all. Or maybe Body Snatchers. I don't know.
I will say that out of all the movies on this list, it's definitely the campiest movie.
I agree with that.
Like, you want to talk about Malignant being campy? No, this is like a classic campy horror film. And to be completely fair, not my kind of film. Like, I can go for some cheese in film, but I'm not like a cheesy horror kind of guy.
Right. The gore really took me out, I think,
Yeah.
of this one. It was so gory.
I thought that was probably the best part was the effects and the like the gore and how over the top they went. They fucking full sent that thing.
Yeah.
So you have a dead cow.
I've kind of been crapping on this movie, right? But I will say what I think the best part of the movie is. A net positive, I think, is the scene where they're like throwing the cat around the basement.
Oh my god.
I thought it was so funny. But other than that, I don't know. I thought it was fine. but there were certain parts of it that were just like really like off-putting, and again, like I was eating during it, and like I felt like I couldn't eat anymore.
Yeah,
Which I mean, some people really like that. Some people like to feel like fucking creeped out and stuff like that.
Yeah. Also, call me crazy, right? Call me crazy, but Dan literally looks like Bob Saget in Full House. Like, at first I thought it was Bob Saget.
Wait, which one?
Dan,
like,
the main male character.
Let me see a picture. I thought he looked like the guy from Baseball.
Oh, Lone Star or whatever the guy's name is.
Yeah. I don't.
I think he looks more like that than Bob Saget. The face just is not this, like the eyebrows, the.
No, it's funny because they're both named. They're both named Dan.
I thought you were gonna say they're both named Bob Saget.
No, but hey, like look at this. Like here's Bob Saget, and here's the fucking actor guy.
Attached a photo of Bob Saget. It's just they have similar-ish hair, I guess, but.
I don't know.
The actual face itself. But I can't trust you on anything, Joe, because you think that I look like Chris Evans.
Cut of Bob
you look
Saget.
like Chris Evans.
I do not look like Chris Evans.
You look like skinny Chris Evans.
I wish I did, but I don't.
You look like skinny Chris Evans at the beginning of the first Captain America.
Body-wise, yes, but face-wise, no.
Face-wise too. Face-wise too.
Anyways.
Anywho.
I think I'm ready to vote for this one.
Yeah, I just want to say there's 2 other Reanimator movies, and I have no clue where they could go. I've never seen them.
So I read a little bit. They just ignore the fact that his head was crushed. Dr. Hill.
Oh, so he's still back. Like he comes back?
Yeah, like they just completely they glance over the fact that his head was crushed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know what? These are your movies, Noah. Why don't you start off with which one you like better?
Yeah.
Want to go through?
This one is they are pretty similar in my head. It's like on terms of camp. I think I'm gonna go with Malignant.
Honestly, I thought, like, when I watched this movie, I thought, like, there's no way this one goes on. But nope.
But against Malignant,
I am voting for Reanimator. As shocking as I thought that.
Right. I think that I'm also going to vote for Reanimator. I just spent my time watching Malignant being like, this is so stupid. And I get that, like, some people might view that as like I know Noah really liked the camp. He thought that it was enough to sort of work for him. For me, it just didn't match up with the rest of the movie. I think they didn't lean in enough to where it wasn't like, this is stupid, but it's like funny and like ironic stupid. It was just stupid to me, I think, lots of parts of it. That's just my opinion, though. But yeah, my vote is also for Reanimator. So Reanimator moves on to the next round in the last match of round 1, which I'm pretty positive on which one this one's gonna go to. The last one that was probably the closest matchup so far, but I think this one I know. But we have Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit versus the 2012 Dark Shadows. Now, Wallace and Gromit was Joaquin's movie. Dark Shadows is mine. Joaquin, you want to talk about Wallace and Gromit?
Sure. In their first feature-length film, the lovable British dog and man duo are back as a humane pest control agency, as Wallace prepares his new invention, a mind control machine. But disaster strikes when the machine goes horribly wrong. Now Wallace and Gromit have to solve the mystery of the Were-Rabbit. So yeah, this is the first Wallace and Gromit feature film. I don't know if you guys have had any like attachment to Wallace and Gromit. I say they're first, but technically there's another one in development right now. So like it's their only one as of right now. I don't know if you guys have ever seen anything Wallace and Gromit related.
This was the only. Well, I probably have seen the things of the show, like in passing, or the shorts, but I used to own this on DVD as a little kid. This one.
I saw some of the shorts. I don't remember much of them, but I know we rented a few like DVDs from the library of Wallace and Gromit.
Good. Yeah, you know, it's basically just adapting those shorts to work in a major theatrical picture, and I personally think it works really well. Stop motion animation, always Aardman's stop motion animation, mind you, I think always stands the test of time. The movie still looks fantastic, even if it's a little more simplistic than something from like your Leica productions. The humor is top-notch British dry wit. It hits well. Like 90% of the jokes in this film I have me laughing. Just like I like the plot. I think it's good cheese, but it's Wallace and cheese. I think it just works well. I'm gonna let you guys talk about it now, though.
I watched this movie, and I have to say, I thought it was just lovely.
I love you, Jason.
I just had such a great time watching it. And again, I had this on DVD, and I didn't have strong memories of like loving it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I really appreciated it now that I'm older. Similar to what you were saying, I had like a steady chuckle the whole way through.
Oh, absolutely.
The whole way through, I was just beat after beat.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what you were saying, I thought visually it was stunning. It was a beautifully animated movie.
Yep.
I thought in terms of just like Halloween movies, I thought it had fantastic like feel, and like the setting of it was, I don't know, it just felt great. And setting and feel, I'm going to talk a little bit in the next movie too, but I think it just really worked here.
Oh, absolutely.
And my last little note is that I fucking love Hutch. I love Hutch so much.
Hutch is great. Fun fact about Hutch, all the lines he says are from like previous Wallace and Gromit shorts. Just like pitched up Peter Salus's voice. By the way,
for cheese.
His voice is so iconic as Wallace. He did pass away a couple years ago, and there's a sound alike now. But like, I don't know. Wallace and Gromit has always just been like something that I could just sit down, watch all the shorts in one go, and be like, this was a good time. And the movie just adds on more to that. I don't know if this is like my favorite Wallace and Gromit thing, but it's definitely like up there. And I can't wait to see like where the sequel goes. But Noah, I've been silent over there. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you guys. I too saw this as a kid. I enjoy that they're able to bring in some of the horror elements. Obviously, it's not like trying to scare kids too much. So they have a couple of scenes that are in the dark. Obviously, there's a fall theme, and they make some references to horror stuff. So I like that this is a movie that anybody can watch. Like, it's a good movie you can watch with your child or something, and you can both enjoy it. Not something like maybe Scooby-Doo and Courage, where, like Jason was saying, you don't feel like you were the right audience for it. This feels like it's for anybody, really.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes Wallace and Gromit just such an enjoyable thing. It's like, anybody can kind of just sit down and watch it. It's a very comfortable movie. Comfy movie.
There really isn't a whole lot more to say about it, I don't think. Like, it's just lovely.
It's a strong film.
It's very similar feel. Like, they're different, but like very similar feels like when I watch Paddington. Like, Paddington it's a lovely movie, just a good time. And it was the same thing here. It was just a great old time. And even like back to the visuals, like even like when you notice like little imperfections, I guess, like fingerprints in the clay and stuff like that, I think it just worked.
The imperfections
like the perfect
add
little
charm.
imperfections.
The imperfections add so much charm. I don't want everything to be completely pristine, because that's just boring. Because like there are some little elements of CG in this film. I'm not talking about like the Blutz waves from the moon, because that's obvious, but like, were you able to tell what was CG, what was stop motion?
No, not really.
It blends in really, really well. The scene at the mansion where all the rabbits are in like the succomatic tube floating around, they were CG.
Oh.
But like I think it works really well. You really could not tell. I have a sneaking suspicion we'll be talking more about Wallace and Gromit in a bit.
Its opponent in this last matchup of round one is Dark Shadows, which I chose. Dark Shadows, the little synopsis I have is, in 18th century Maine, Barnabas Collins presides in the town of Collinsport, which his family founded. The 18th century playboy, however, seals his own doom when he breaks the heart of a servant/witch named Angelique. The witch curses Barnabas and his family, turns him into a vampire, and buries him alive, enslaving him to his immortality. 2 centuries later, Barnabas escapes from his tomb and finds 1972 Collinsport, a very different place. His once grand estate has fallen into ruin, and the dysfunctional remnants of his family have fared little better, secretly still plagued by Angelique. Now, this movie is a movie that I've tried to get on the bracket like every year. But somehow we always get to the thing where like, oh, well, this movie might fit better here, and then we take this one out. It happened like 2 years in a row, and I was like, you know what? Even though we kind of said that we were going to do movies that like we weren't super familiar with, I was like, I gotta get Dark Shadows in here. And I will say this. I think that what I was talking about with like Wallace and Gromit, like I think that it has a great setting and feel. But I think the difference is I think this lacks a little substance compared to Wallace and Gromit. I think it has the setting and feel of it because I think New England and Halloween is just like a perfect match, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like the movie itself does lack a little bit. It was also much more horny than I remembered it being.
I was gonna say that at one point. Like some of this stuff is.
This movie is not good. I've never seen it before, and I remember seeing advertisements for this movie like growing up as a kid, like all the time, like when it was first coming out. And it's like, yeah, I have no interest in it. I had no interest in it then, and I definitely do not have interest in it now. It's just, I think the acting is pretty bad. I think the makeup on like Johnny Depp is horrible. It's like you could like
Really?
I swear you could see it like peeling off at times. I don't know. It doesn't work well for me. Victoria, why she like they introduced the movie at like her going to this mansion for some reason. Like, why is that? Why are you making her like the beginning starting point, just to then have her basically not be in like the rest of the movie? Instead, like she's in for a couple scenes to basically be like a love interest, but that doesn't work well because fucking Johnny Depp can't stop putting his penis in everybody. So like I don't feel a real connection between.
I have an
these
explanation
two.
to that, which I'll get to, but
I mean, I'm sure there was shit like all over the cutting room floor for a film like this. Definitely feels like it.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I thought it was a super horny film too. I did think like that supernatural sex scene was kind of funny.
right.
But like this is kind of a harder PG-13 in that regard. But
right.
funnily enough, Johnny Depp won a Kids' Choice Award for this film.
Really?
Yeah, it was on the IMDb
The
page.
kids loved it. Wow. I did not know that.
That's
Yeah, I thought
funny.
I thought it had good comedy sprinkled throughout. Like it wasn't like Wallace and Gromit where it was like a steady chuckle all the way through. But like I really liked the hippies. I thought they were really funny when they were talking with Johnny Depp's character with Barnabas in the woods. I liked Willie, like the groundskeeper character. But yeah, kind of speaking to what Joaquin was saying about like the Victoria character. So this is not like an original script, Dark Shadows.
Okay.
It was originally like a soap opera in the 60s.
Really?
It was a super long running soap opera in the 60s. It wasn't even about Barnabas Collins at first. He was brought later on to like save the vampire character to like save the ratings, and people ate him up, and then he became like the lead character of the show.
So was this not like a paranormal thing at first?
It was kind of paranormal, but it wasn't like, yeah. But
Right.
then, so I tried watching that because it was on some streaming site a while ago, and it was kind of what we were talking about earlier where with older stuff, like it's just people talking really fast and standing in rooms. So I didn't really, I watched like a couple episodes and I stopped. But there's a reboot of the TV show that came out in 1991, which was on, I want to say Prime. And last year I watched that. And the Victoria character plays a much bigger part of that movie. There's the big mystery of like, it's not really super explained in this movie, but like in the TV show, like she looks just like Josette and stuff like that, and like she and Barnabas kind of fall in love again. But
I mean, she looks a little like Josette at the beginning. Assuming Josette.
I think they are played by the same. They are played by the same actor.
Yeah. Okay. I thought
movie,
so.
But it wasn't like explicitly said like you look just like her or anything like that. But yeah, so she was like a big character in the original. So I think they just kept her in this one because of how big of a character she was. Mm-hmm. One thing that's very upsetting though is that 1991 show, which it's it's still kind of soap opera-ish, is much better than the 60s version. But I was getting into it, right? It got canceled. And I was like, well, when's the next season? Or not when's the next season, but where's the next season? I looked it up and it got canceled. It was terrible. I was like, it was like Blue Balls, but for TV.
Mm-hmm. I had no idea. That's like a time-spanning franchise.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I think I have fonder memories at watching it again. Funnily enough, talking about like the Kids' Choice Awards thing, like as like a kid. Maybe I probably wasn't super young. I was probably more like a teenager when I first watched it. I don't think I watched it in 2012 when it came out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that while it's not great, I still think it's like fun. Like I wasn't like some of these other movies I was like watching and I was like, oh, I can't wait for this to end, or like I'm not gonna watch this ever again. But Dark Shadows is like, even though it's not a great movie, it's like it was still like a fun ride, I feel like.
Yeah. I have a bit of a question.
Okay.
I don't know if I just like missed the context behind this scene, but Chloe Grace Moretz's character at the end is revealed to be a werewolf.
Oh, the werewolf. Yeah, that felt very shoehorned, and I forgot about
was that literally like
it.
I don't know if I like just blanked or something. Was that literally like thrown in?
It felt very thrown in. I mean, literally just the explanation line was like what, like
going through changes or something like that.
It was something. Well, she said that, but like the witch was like, oh yeah, I had a werewolf bite her when she was a baby or something like that.
I
like she said it like right
after
that. Like she appeared as a werewolf. People were like, you're a werewolf or whatever, and she was like, oh yeah, I had a werewolf bite her as a baby, or bite her in her crib or whatever.
Fucking great. I love that one throwaway line of dialogue for such a weird scene. Like, did not really.
I thought that was the weakest character, was the daughter. Just the actor.
I think the family was mostly just like uninteresting. Besides like the mother, she was fine.
I think
the witch. Okay, I like the face cracking effect at the end.
Right.
Like this shows she's like superficial. But yeah, this movie is not that good.
I thought it was decently enjoyable too, Jason. But I feel like Tim Burton's style just has diminishing returns. Like,
right.
Every movie I watch feels pretty similar from him. At least the ones that I'm aware of. And every time I see another one, it's like, okay, not as interesting now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you guys feel about Tim Burton.
He's very hit or miss for me. I do think this does feel somewhat different from his other ones. It still has a similar vibe, but I think he leaned much more into comedy in this than like his other outings, I feel like. But yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying about like, I feel like if you've seen one Tim Burton movie, you kind of know what you're getting with most of them. Mine is like the weird oddball, like Batman doesn't really feel like, you know, Dark Shadows, but...
I haven't seen his Planet of the Apes, but I can't imagine.
Oh, that too, right. But yeah, so again, overall, I thought it was fun, not great, but, you know, enjoyable enough compared to like some of the other ones.
Yeah.
But we can go to a vote now, unless there's anything else that needs to be said.
No, I think we're just ready.
Yeah. Even though I like Dark Shadows and it was my pick, Wallace and Gromit I just thought was lovely. That's my pick to go through.
Oh yeah. Wallace and Gromit, all the way.
Yeah, I'm going with W and G.
Good old WG.
Okay. Well, now we can move on to the semi-finals round or match one.
This when it starts getting quicker.
Yep. We have Invasion of the Body Snatchers versus Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is better, right?
Yeah,
right?
Ghostbusters is better. It's not even like Invasion of the Body Snatchers is bad. It's not like it. There are like a lot of good things to enjoy about it. It's just.
Yeah, I just think it's dated. It's.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get going.
Yeah. Oh, and also kind of to go back on what I was saying earlier, how I said like when I used to not think Ghostbusters was a very Halloween-ish movie. I have changed my tune on that.
Okay, good.
I'm not like, oh, this is like the epitome of Halloween movies or anything.
No, but like
it definitely was like, yeah, I definitely changed my tune. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's pretty Halloween. I will still not add the Ghostbusters theme on any Halloween music playlist. But that's
sad.
Regardless, but I still think Invasions was good for the time. I think, again, it's weird that my biggest like positive was the audio quality, but it was really surprising. And I thought the story was fine, but I think it was just like, again, like movies at the time, you didn't really have to go into like there's big lore of why these things are happening. You could just kind of be like, oh, there's aliens, and so it kind of lacked in the story. It just sort of was stuff happening, and the stuff that was happening wasn't necessarily the most engaging. So yeah, I mean, my vote's for Ghostbusters on this one.
Yeah, Ghostbusters all the way.
I vote for Ghostbusters as well.
Man, does that mean I got 2 movies moving on? Oh wait, no, never mind.
So we'll
see.
Match two.
We'll
I
see,
think we know how match 2 is gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
But match 2, we have Reanimator versus Wallace and Gromit. It's weird. They're probably the 2 like polar opposites of this bracket. I'm sure there are people out there that enjoy movies in like the style of Reanimator better than a stop motion claymation Wallace and Gromit Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm.
But those people ain't me, and I just think that it was like out of all, because we really went through a lot of the like true like I think Halloween movies in the first 2 brackets. We really kind of dwindled down our options here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these movies, I watched them, and like while they were horror movies and stuff like that, I don't think necessarily horror directly correlates to Halloween. Obviously, they do go together, but it isn't like any horror movie is gonna be like a Halloween movie to me.
Right.
And Wallace and Gromit, on the other hand, was like very Halloween movie. It was like it had the right feel, the setting like put me in the Halloween mood. I thought it was great. Mm-hmm. So
feels right.
I don't know. I mean, are you one of those people, Noah, that prefers the campy horror of Reanimator comparatively for Halloween?
I think if I had a house and I was going to decorate it for Halloween or something, that is more the way I would lean. I wouldn't go for the more kid-friendly, family-friendly.
For the horror stuff.
I enjoy like all the horror, like haunted houses and stuff, and I feel like Reanimator does a lot of that with all the gore effects, a lot of the neon colors with the chemicals, and all the things like that. The mad scientist just motif in general.
Right.
So I just
almost kind of like Frankenstein vibes to it, to a certain degree.
But with the 80s kind of like over the top exaggerated flair. So in terms of Halloween, I think that's more what I like.
Right.
Obviously, I like the Wallace and Gromit kind of family friendly thing too. It's just Halloween. That's kind of what I want.
We can go to a vote. I think I know which one's going through, but my vote's for Wallace and Gromit.
My vote is for Wallace and Gromit.
I think I'll go with Reanimator. I think, especially with the craft that goes into Wallace and Gromit, like that's very obvious. But I think there's a lot of craft that goes into the visuals of that movie too. So I just want to give some that appreciation.
Sure.
All right. So now we move on to round 3, the final round, the finals. We have Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit versus Ghostbusters. And earlier I mentioned that I have an idea of how the bracket's going to turn out, but I'm not exactly sure. This is exactly how I thought the bracket was going to turn out. And I think that these are the top. I think these are the 2 best movies that we had on the bracket. I think we had a lot of duds. We had some stuff sort of in the middle. But these 2 were the ones that I watched and I was like, okay, these are good movies.
This year definitely had some strange picks. Man, I kind of have my pick in mind, So I don't know if you guys want to go first.
Did you expect 2 of your movies to go to the finals?
No. Well, okay. I guess it's like how do I say this? I came in to like watch all these movies with like an open mind. Besides shit like Malignant, because I've already seen it. I was like, this.
Right.
There's no way. Like I won't allow Malignant to win. Like, there's just no way. I thought possibly, you know, some of the stuff on the list I have never really heard or seen that much from before. Is like, you know, it could be possible that like a toss up. I did throw some pretty heavy hitters in there though. Like I mean, when you throw Ghostbusters in, that's Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm. I know what my answer is, but I'm just trying to figure out how to articulate like how I'm kind of sort of getting to my decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're both, like I said, I think they're both the best movies in this year's bracket. I think the two movies in the finals are the two best movies, at least in my opinion, right? I think though, what I said earlier, you know, I used to not really think Ghostbusters was that much of a Halloween movie. I changed my tune a little bit on it this year, but I didn't full 180 on it. I changed my tune a little bit to where I'm like, okay, I can see watching this around Halloween time and it being, you know, a Halloween movie.
Uh-huh.
But I think that Wallace and Gromit really lean into the Halloween aesthetic a lot more, and it's not just like aesthetic. That's not the only thing. Like, it's a great movie underneath it all too.
Right, of course.
I mean, I think for me, I've got to go with Wallace and Gromit. Ghostbusters, it was a lot better than I remembered it being.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it is sort of maybe overhyped might not be the right word. Like, I think it does deserve the hype because it is a good movie. But what we mentioned earlier about how it does sort of feel like a movie that could have easily have been lost in the annals of 80s movies.
Right.
It did sort of have that feeling. So yeah, my pick is for Wallace and Gromit.
Noah, would you like to go first? Seeing as how these are both my films, I feel like maybe I should go last.
In my head, I'm trying to compare these two movies, especially since I've seen them both as a kid.
Right.
And I feel like they're both like family friendlier than any other movies we really watched here. I guess that's what we did though.
Right.
Ghostbusters as a kid, I always felt was kind of like I was like on the edge. It's a little more racier than like of the typical like family friendly movie you would watch as a kid, because they say some swears around and there's that kind of realistic, grounded feeling. Whereas Wallace and Gromit, of course, like it's a G-rated animated film that really anybody can just get into. So I think I prefer the Ghostbusters, like science and everything like that behind it, and the dry humor. They're both pretty dry films, but I think I like the world that they set up. It's obviously grounded in reality with that supernatural aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I really like the I guess it's just the scientist characters and all the things that they're going into, all this like equipment that they make up, all the scientific reason behind it, and then on top of that you have all the great chemistry and the banter between Bill Murray, Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis. So I think I just appreciate that that squad that they have. It really feels like they're a real team. Not to say that like Wallace and Gromit's a bad duo or have bad chemistry or anything. I think that's just what I appreciate a bit more. So I think I'm gonna go Ghostbusters duo.
Now, before Joaquin goes on to give his decision, I forgot to do these for all the other movies, but we'll do it again here. I have the Rotten Tomato scores for them. So Ghostbusters has a 97% critic rating and an 88% audience rating. Wallace and Gromit doesn't have enough critic reviews to get a critic score, but it has an 89.
Really?
Yeah, it only had like 2 reviews, I think.
That's crazy.
But it has an 89% audience score.
Whoa, are you on Rotten Tomatoes?
I was on it earlier, last night.
Dog.
Why are you?
It has
on
182 reviews.
Oh. What was I? I might have been looking at another thing.
You might have been looking at like maybe one of the shorts or something.
I probably was then. Okay, because the audience score is different too. Okay, so never mind. So Wallace and Gromit had a 95% Rotten Tomatoes score, critic rating, and a 79% audience score. Okay. Also, just really quick running through the other ones, it's very fast. Transylvania 65000 had an 18% critic score and a 41% audience score.
Too high.
Reanimator had a 94% critic score and an 82% audience score. Malignant had a 76 critic, 52 audience. And yeah, those are all of them. Oh, and Dark Shadows had a 35 critic and a 46 audience.
I feel like the Malignant scores are backwards. I feel like this is more like an audience.
Right.
Enjoy more than the critics.
One thing I want to say about Wallace and Gromit, right, is it is a homage to a bunch of like classic horror films. Like it takes your like, it's basically like Were Rabbit. It's basically like your werewolf premise, but like it puts an interesting twist on things, and I really appreciate that. It feels not it definitely, to me, it feels less like a Halloween movie than something like Ghostbusters. And I don't know if that's just because like Ghostbusters is probably like more iconic, but if it's between watching these two movies, I would definitely have to say I'd pick Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. That movie is just, it's probably, no joke, it's probably like one of my favorite animated films of all time. Because it's just like how, everything like works well in that film. I can't think of like any big major problems. Like,
right.
The acting is fucking fantastic. Heck, having one of your main characters not say a single word has got to be really tough, but god damn it, they do it so well. I don't know. I can't sing that movie's praises like enough. Is this the first time I've won? Like,
you didn't suggest Monster House, did you?
No, I think you did.
Okay, then I think this is the first time that you have a movie that you suggested win the bracket then.
Let's go.
So there you have it. The winner of the 2022 Halloween movie bracket is Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. But of course, it does not end there. We have the King of the Hill.
Now, before the King of the Hill,
okay.
I've just got to say, Miss Peabody, we're going to need that potato fact of the day.
According to a KFC manager, KFC uses instant mashed potatoes. I can confirm this. I used to work there.
Thank you, Miss Peabody.
God. That might be the best one yet.
She really riled me up, and I'm excited for this King of the Hill.
King of the Hill.
We have the 2022 Halloween movie bracket winner, Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit, going up against the defending champion, Addams Family Values, which won last year. It beat Monster House and the King of the Hill last year, because Monster House, of course, won the first Halloween movie bracket.
Mm-hmm.
And this almost feels like a retread of last year when we had Addams Family Values versus Coraline, I feel like.
Right.
Now, I mentioned this to Noah before we started recording. I think you might have still been out getting Dunkin' Donuts joke when I mentioned this.
Mm-hmm.
But so I watched some of these movies I watched last night, right? I procrastinated a little bit and I didn't get to them until like last night.
I watched 2 movies last night.
I watched Ghostbusters last night as well as the Scooby-Doo movie. And it was getting late. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, oh, I still haven't really rewatched Addams Family Values. Do I want to rewatch it? Like, or do I want to get some sleep before we have to do? Because we started recording at 10 o'clock in the morning, which is unprecedented for the Potatocast.
Very unprecedented for us.
But so I was like, do I want to watch it or do I just want to get some sleep? And I eventually was like, you know what? It's on Paramount. I'll just put it on while I get the bracket set up, and while I do my synopsis for Dark Shadows and for Transylvania. I was like, I'll just put it on in the background and have it playing. And I clicked it on, and it maybe played for 2 minutes, and I was like, I have to pause this because I need to be paying full attention to this movie. Like, it gripped me immediately again, and I was like, I can't just have this in the background. I have to just watch the movie. And so I did my work that I had to do. I closed my laptop and I watched Addams Family Values again last night. And I still have last year's little synopsis, so just in case anybody is unaware of what Addams Family Values is. Gomez Addams and his wife Morticia are celebrating the arrival of a baby boy, but siblings Wednesday and Pugsley are none too happy about the new addition and try their best to eliminate the infant. Gomez and Morticia hire a nanny, Debbie, for the kids, and she charms Fester, but has evil intentions for him and his fortune. The Addamses must stop her, but how? And, like I said, immediately, like 2 minutes into this movie, after I was planning on just having it playing in the background, it roped me back in. I've sung my praises for this a lot, like last year. It's just the same thing this year. It's just, I love the Addams Family. These two movies, the first movie, just Addams Family, and then the Addams Family Values sequel. They're just so good. Again, they are like, in terms of like feeling and setting, they're like the epitome of like, this doesn't even take place in October. This takes place in the summer, this movie. But it still has like such, it still feels like Halloween so much. Especially like I was watching it and I was really paying attention to like the wedding scene in it. And I was paying attention to like all the character designs of the people sitting in the crowd. And I was like, the aesthetic of it is so spot on. And I want to live in this house around Halloween. Like that's my, Noah was like, if he could decorate for Halloween.
I could not.
Noah was like, if he could decorate for Halloween, he'd urge into the horror of it. If I had an unlimited budget and it was like, how would I decorate my house for Halloween? I would have a scale replica of the Addams house and live there. Anyways, it's has my heart, this movie, both of them.
So is that your vote?
I won't give my vote yet. We can talk about the movies a little bit. Kind of refreshers on Addams Family Values. How you guys thought on a rewatch, if you guys did rewatch it.
I will fully admit that I did not rewatch Addams Family Values. I will say though, I mean, I can just tell you everything that happens in that film. It's so good. It's so iconic. It's very memorable. More so than the first Addams Family, I'd say. I don't know. It's tough because Wallace and Gromit, man, is just so. I think it should be even more iconic. I think more people really should.
It's very underrated, I think.
More people should really watch that movie. It's really good. It won Best Animated Film that year for a reason, because like it deserved it. Man, I don't know. It's just.
I'll say this, which I mean, this might kind of give away my vote a little bit, but whatever. I would put Wallace and Gromit above Monster House. If Monster House was the king of the hill right now, I'd vote for Wallace and Gromit, I think.
Interesting. Noah, what are your thoughts on the matter?
I too didn't rewatch this year, but it's still it sticks out in my mind too. My line of reasoning is going to be kind of similar to the last round, where I feel like the Addams Family Values just has like a bit more of an edge to it than like Wallace and Gromit. There is that sort of there's a lot of those off-color jokes, I guess, like more of the risque things, which I think really helps it in my mind to make it Halloweeny. To me, the perfect Halloween movie needs to have that kind of like, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this right now. I shouldn't be watching this. So, I mean, as an adult, it's not that bad, but when you're watching it as a kid, it helps it. It pushes it for me. So, if we want to get into the voting, I think I'm going to go with Addams Family Values.
All right. Well, I think Jason kind of sounds like the most divided here out of all of us, so I guess I'll just have to say Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and see where Jason takes us.
Yeah, this is interesting, actually, because this is the first. Speaking about how this was the first time Joaquin had a movie suggested that gets to the finals, I think this is the first time in like a finals or King of the Hill where I'm the deciding vote. I don't think I was the deciding vote last year because I was like heavy Addams Family Values, and I don't think I was the deciding vote for Monster House either.
No, I think Noah was, because it was Monster House versus.
Oh, Addams Family, I think. Yeah. The first Addams Family.
Yeah, I think Noah was the deciding vote there.
Yeah. I think if maybe I didn't rewatch Addams Family Values last night, it'd be a little bit closer. But again, as soon as I turned it on, there it was.
Yeah.
I was roped in it immediately.
Yeah.
I remembered exactly why I love these movies.
Mm-hmm.
The humor is so spot on. I mean, the humor in Wallace and Gromit is fantastic too, like I said. I had a steady chuckle the entire way through. But like the Addams Family jokes, they just come out of nowhere and they make me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Addams Family Values. I think it still is the cream of the crop when it comes to Halloween movies for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yes. Speaking about Addams Family, I did want to talk about this very briefly.
Uh-huh.
Because I think we mentioned it last year, how I think these movies were the last good Addams Family content.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stage play, I fucking hate. The animated movies. Granted, I haven't really seen the animated movies, but like just from like reviews I've seen of them and like the trailers, they don't look good.
Yep.
But there is, and again, kind of going back to Tim Burton, there's the Wednesday show, the Netflix Wednesday show, that's coming out this year.
Oh,
and
that's
when they
right?
it hasn't. It comes out. I think it hasn't come out yet. It comes out in a couple weeks. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a new Wednesday show, and they announced it a while ago. Tim Burton heading it up, and admittedly, I was hopeful, but I wasn't optimistic, right? Because when they did a synopsis of it, it was like something along the lines of Wednesday gets sent to this school where she has to solve like a supernatural mystery or something like that, and it sounded very CW-ish to me.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded very CW show to me. But they released the trailers for it, and while I don't think it will be Addams Family or Addams Family Values, right? I do think it looks pretty decent. I think it could be the first like good or decent Addams Family content that we've had in a while. It has a lot of like, especially so Jenna Ortega's playing Wednesday, and she definitely has certain mannerisms to her performance that are very reminiscent of Christina Ricci's Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Christina Ricci's also in it.
Yeah, people were hoping she was going to play Morticia, but she plays some other kid's parent, I think, in the movie.
Yeah.
Or in the TV show.
Yeah.
Which is a good callback. I like that. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good, and I'm excited for it. I kind of wish that it came out or started before the bracket, because I think it would have been interesting to talk about like the actual show itself.
You know, if I knew I was thinking if I knew Hocus Pocus 2 was coming out like in September,
you would have suggested that?
I think I would have suggested that just to have like like something a lot more current and like tied in with like a previous bracket.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. I don't know if either of you have seen it.
Yeah,
No,
I watched it
I
like the day it came out.
You watched how was it? Give me your quick thoughts.
I think the new one kind of has the camp, but it feels like a forced. Maybe how you guys see Malignant, a forced kind of camp. Like where it just kind of looks cheap, and like visually, a lot of the things I think could have looked better. The story was decent. Like it wasn't just a rehash of the first plot, which I appreciated. They do some new things, but they do rehash some beats like that. In the first one, they have like the iconic song and stuff. They just redo that again with a new song that's way less Halloweeny. It was One Way or Another was the song. It's really like a random.
Okay, interesting.
And I think this should have been made 15 years ago. It would have been better.
Right.
You could really feel the age of a couple of the actresses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm drawing a blank on their names, but you could tell they just didn't have the same pep in their step. They were trying. It's just they're a bit older now, so it was harder. So this would have been better made in 2005, not 2022.
Yeah, that's the consensus I've heard so far, is that it's kind of mid.
I think it's worth checking out, especially if you like the first one.
Right.
But
didn't really like the first one, so
yeah,
I'm a fan of it. I liked it.
It makes me that you saying that kind of makes me afraid of like the Santa Claus show coming out. In a couple of months.
Tim Allen one.
The Tim Allen one. I hope that's good. The trailer for it looks awful. Like in the set looks so like cheap, but I don't know. One quick thing I want to say before we close this out. So for Reanimator, there were 3 different versions of it. There's the home video / theatrical release. Then there's the R-rated version, which has the subplot straight from the Wikipedia article, including a subplot involving Dr. Hill hypnotizing several of the characters to make them more suggestible to his will. In this version, Dean Halsey is hypnotized early on to make him turn against West, and then later is hypnotized again after he's been reanimated. And then there's the integral cut, which has the R-rated scenes, and then also like a bunch of other cutscenes. So that's the version that I saw. I got like another 20 minutes of Reanimator.
I feel like, I mean, I didn't watch it, so I can't say for sure, but I feel like it would take away because the rest of it was pretty grounded in its own like science. Like, it seems like
it was definitely it was definitely one of the problems I had with the film. Like, he just has like mind control powers out of nowhere.
Yeah, that seems like it's out of nowhere. It seems like it's completely outside the scope of the film.
Yeah, it definitely makes more sense in context that he can, like, you know, have will over them after they're dead, because he's like so used to like being around dead bodies and lobotomizing and whatnot.
Well, that does it for the third Halloween movie bracket, 2022 Halloween movie bracket. And yeah, I think that the best movie came out on top. I think Wallace and Gromit deserved the win. I think that it was unlucky that Addams Family Values was holding the King of the Hill at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank you, Noah, for coming back. I genuinely was not sure if we were even going to do it, because again, we haven't done a podcast since the last Halloween episode. Who knows? Maybe it'll be 2 years till the next one. But we appreciate you coming back on.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, and it definitely makes it, for me, feel more Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it gives you something to do.
I would not be watching these Halloween films if we weren't doing this. So it's always fun.
Well, with that being said, Joaquin, where can the people find you?
You can look for me, 12-star, just all over the place. You'll find me.
Fantastic. No, you got anything you want to plug?
No, you won't find me anywhere, really.
Okay. Yeah, my Twitter and stuff will be in the description. Still is the same, Capper66, even though I said I was going to change it like 2 years ago.
It doesn't matter at this point. You're stuck with it.
Yeah. And yeah, hope everybody has a great Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
See ya.